Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, and an offensive jam-packed episode right here of Gators Breakdown. We hear from new co-offensive coordinator Russ Callaway. We get to hear from Graham Mertz on his return, him discussing that a little bit more as well. And then we move to the tight end position with Arlis Boardingham. So all this happening because spring practice is underway, a lot more access to the coaches and the players. So going through the press car wash, I guess so we can say that. So a lot to get into, mainly focused on the offense this episode. Next episode will be focused on the defense, where we hear from Ron Roberts, Shamar James, and Derek Wingo. Hey, we get to get back in the groove of all these press conferences. So we'll hear from Ron Roberts for the first time. But for this episode, we'll hear from Callaway for the first time as the co-offensive coordinator, as I said. So plenty to get into on the offensive side of the ball here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. So hit that like button, subscribe if you don't mind right here on this YouTube version or your podcast platform. No matter how you listen, subscribe to Gators Breakdown. But really on YouTube, smashing those like buttons helps Gators Breakdown get noticed, more people watch, and all that YouTube algorithm stuff. That stuff just helps us out. So do me a favor, help us out right here. But you get those notifications as well when there's a new Gators Breakdown. Leave a comment. All those things really help Gators Breakdown grow. And of course, Gators Breakdown Plus, keep that conversation going. You get access to that Discord server, ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown, extra episodes of those chats that we have right there on Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description to join. So, all right, let's get right to it. And let's hear from Russ Callaway on his new co-offensive coordinator role for the Florida Gators.
I think the involvement, we kind of started the transition a little bit last year, just me coming over offense and being a part of a new staff, and we kind of felt our way through it, and we grew as we go, and we've kind of gotten to a point where we've gotten in a good rhythm. So I would say, just continuing to do what we did last year, but like any off season, you want to critique and do things better, whether it's organization from a scheme standpoint, whatever. But I'm super excited about this opportunity and can't wait for this year.
You were signaling plays in from the sideline last year. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like, and how much did that help you maybe just learn this offense and get a feel for how Billy likes to call plays? Oh,
absolutely. It's in what we do. That's a big important piece, because you're talking to the quarterback, you're talking to the tight end, the running back, and it is a good way to kind of pick up the offense and learn the intricacies of the alignments, assignments, and from the whole 11. So it was a good opportunity to do that. It kind of prepared me for this upcoming year and what we got going on. So I was grateful.
Well, one difference is kind of coming in new to college football this year are the helmet radios. So calling in plays will be a little bit different this year. So, hey, that's a learning curve they're going through in spring practice right now as well. But, hey, look, the specific dynamics are still unclear of how much responsibility Callaway will have, of course. Given him getting the co-offensive coordinator title and the involvement last year, it'll certainly be a larger role for Callaway. And look, on Thursday, Napier had to say, quote, last year to kind of observe him and some of his responsibilities. I thought he did a great job in not only preparing for the meetings with me, but also his interaction with the players. I think he's got a good understanding. It's evident that he's a coach's son. He's a leader. He's done a good job in his role so far. So going back to last year, the word was Callaway was heavily involved in the red zone part of the offense last year. And that was one of the best aspects of the offense. So hopefully with more experience, that allows him to be more involved and help Napier out where Napier can concentrate in other areas. And I'm hoping the way this works out is he can trust Callaway a bit. And whether that be play calling on game days or play calling in certain situations, we still got to figure that out. And it still seems like Napier will be the main play caller, but I'd bet on more input from Callaway, and I'm hoping that just unlocks something for Billy Napier to keep his eyes open in the other areas that, of course, have struggled in the first 2 years at Florida. But I mean, look, I know many wanted a outside name for offensive coordinator there for Florida. The system was not going to change. Look, even Russ Callaway has this air raid background. You're not switching to an air raid offense because of that. You'll implement it. You heard me and Seth talk about it in one of the last episodes of Gators Breakdown. There's already some elements of that in the offense anyway. There's some route concepts that are in that style of offense that have bled over into Billy Napier's offense, but you weren't going to go out and hire somebody who was going to completely change this offense because of the returning quarterback, because of a lot of returning pieces that we'll get into in this episode of Gators Breakdown. So much returning. Callaway part of that. Could you have brought in somebody else who may have had a familiarity with Billy Napier? Sure. I do think options were kind of limited given the situation Florida finds themselves in a little bit. But at the same time, I think Callaway's name has always been there. There is a background. This is not some... I know some people didn't like the hire just because they don't think anything will change. I think something will change just because of a lot of experience coming back from Florida on that side of the ball. So I'm okay with this move. And going back to a couple of weeks ago when it was announced, I think we kind of all knew that there was a chance it would end up this way. But given the familiarity, 2 years on staff, first year was defense, coming over last year, having some success, and I think helping this offense take some steps last year, especially in the red zone. We'll see how it all turns out. But like I said, Napier probably still the main play caller, but we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure how this is going to work out. So they're still kind of being coy about it. Still, like the roles and the responsibilities still aren't fully out there. Napier was asked about it Thursday. He wasn't really forthcoming about it. Callaway wasn't asked. Said we'd have to ask Napier about it. Well, we kind of already did. So there's still some things being kept under wraps as far as percentage or how much involvement and the responsibilities. So as for who will be leading the charge for Callaway and Napier in this offense, let's hear what Callaway has to say on the return of Graham Mertz and freshman DJ Lagway.
I'm super excited about Graham, that kid. I mean, it all starts with the quarterback, in my opinion. And, first off, he's a great person. He's an unbelievable communicator. We ask him to do a lot in our offense, and he's very, very sharp. And he has taken it to the next level more than I thought he would from last year, and that's a great sign for us. So I'm really excited, and it ain't just Graham. We got a lot of guys in that unit that are hungry and eager to go out there and prove what we can do.
What are your early impressions of DJ Lagway?
Yeah, DJ, I tell you what, first off, he's an unbelievable person, and he's a special talent. Graham has been doing a great job mentoring him, not just from a ball standpoint, and not that DJ didn't have that already, but just showing him, hey man, this is how you do it. This is how you approach meetings. This is how you approach practice. Everything from top down. And DJ already had that, or he wouldn't be here. But I think DJ's going to be a great player for the Gators, and I'm excited to be a part of his journey.
All right, we've spoken a lot of quarterback the last few episodes of Gators Breakdown, so nothing new as far as a new angle to all this. But I do like tying in the larger role for Callaway and the experience of Mertz, and to me that should be a positive for the Florida offense. It's the first time this offense, it's the first time Napier has had the luxury of a returning quarterback at Florida, and look, it needs to pay off. And there's no better time in a critical season that has landmines all over the schedule. There's no better time for having all that experience return. So this pairing to me has some potential, and I'm eager to see if Callaway can offer more to give Graham, in that confidence of taking the next step and pushing the ball down the field more. Air raid concepts, make it easier on the quarterback. And when Florida decides to go 4 or 5 wide, there should be some of those influences from Russ and his background of the offense. So, there are steps for this offense. We know, yes, it was not the worst part of the Florida team last year. That goes reserved for the defense. That Florida offense had to make up for a lot of that Florida defense last year. But at the same time, we know there are areas of growth, a little more consistency in the offense, a little more explosiveness in the passing game of the offense. So returning a quarterback, Callaway's bigger responsibility. I think that pairing really should pay off for the Gators. Of course, talent comes a long way. You got to identify some weapons at the wide receiver position. We'll get into tight end later on this episode. But man, there are things I think you can point to that are lining up for this offense to take a step. And I think the two biggest things are Graham Mertz returning and Callaway's influence in this offense. So, of course, No surprise about what he had to say about DJ Lagway and Napier and Callaway both going back to Mertz being able to be that mentor for Lagway. And you don't have to throw him out there. He's got a lot to learn, and Mertz, with all his experience, has a lot to share towards DJ Lagway. And I think learning the intricacies of the quarterback position, and no better time to learn from a guy who's been around the game for so long in your freshman season. You know how to attack a game plan. You know how to study film, or you're going to learn how to study film and the right way to do it. Pair that with what we think Lagway's talent can be. And given what we've discussed in recent episodes of Gators Breakdown as well, with Lagway getting a background in this offense already and practicing with the same Florida football. He's done everything he can up to this point. Pair that with now learning from Graham Mertz. I mean, Lagway might be ready sooner than most typical freshman quarterback are. So something to keep an eye on of how much they also, I won't say they won't trust him if they don't let him go out there and throw it. Apparently, Lagway's really showing off early in the first 2 practices of spring camp that he's not afraid to launch the ball down the field. We just talked about creating explosives. I mean, maybe there's certain situations and short yardage situations where a lot of man defense to be played. You get some one-on-one on the outside. Defenses, if Lagway has come in and put a background of, okay, he's a short yardage quarterback. He can run with his legs. That's his biggest threat, a la Tebow. But maybe let him air it out a whole lot more with those safe situations of one-on-one matchups on the outside, and you create your explosives that way. So I think if he earns it, if he earns the trust of this staff, I think there's a route for DJ Lagway to not just become a part of this offense in a safe manner, but a part of this offense and helping create explosives. So, all right, talking quarterbacks right there, and let's turn to the quarterback situation. And also, before I forget, Florida did get a commit, of course, on late Saturday evening. We'll get into the commit of Enoch Wangoy. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. I don't want to pronounce that. From the Jacksonville area, but very, very, very under the radar prospect. We'll get into that along the offensive line as well. So continuing the offensive theme for this episode. But let's go to the quarterback, and that is, of course, Graham Mertz. Let's start with him on his approach of his return and not basing it on external factors.
For me, I don't really place my satisfaction in that. And frankly, I was unsatisfied with last year. I base my satisfaction off of, did we win every game? And I think that's the only way to go about playing this game and being in the quarterback position. I think that's what should drive you. And I don't really ever try to put weight into external things, good, bad, or ugly, because I personally don't think that has any impact on how I'm doing my job. It's, are you here and are you doing your job to the best of your ability? We won 5 games, like point blank. That's not it. And that's why I'm back. And that's why we are fixing it. For me, it's like the older guys that came back, the new guys that came in, and really the older guys that transferred in. I mean, they've all seen it done the right way. I mean, you think about guys that came from Washington. I mean, a guy that came from Penn, he's extremely smart. Like, he can figure out issues. A guy from Wisconsin that was a captain. Like, there's these leaders that have seen it done the right way, and the players can take that accountability and push it out to everybody. So for me, it was a long answer to your question, but like I said in my post, it just felt like there was unfinished business that I needed to attend to.
Now, look, we don't know the NFL feedback Graham Mertz got, and of course, he ended last season injured anyway, so probably wouldn't have been able to put all the work he wanted to into training for an NFL combine. But we know he's not some high draft pick, so probably coming back for Florida, improving on last season is the right choice anyway. But that could be that's not a shot at him, and look, that could be a benefit of Florida. We know last year's draft class was high anyway. So now, granted, we hoped he could come in and maybe shatter expectations even more, but that's what it was. And to start that soundbite off, it was, did he get some satisfaction of proving people wrong last year? He said, no, it comes down to wins and losses. That's great that I exceeded expectations, but it didn't, in the end, it didn't matter. We won 5 games. Okay. So now it's taking that next step, taking all that experience he talked about, not just the team within itself, but the transfer portal as well. So I love the mindset there, basically, and look, and that's the mindset you want. And this is the type of messaging you'll hear this time of year. Hope springs eternal. We should all be taking what we hear from the players and the positivity there, but they want to fix it. And Graham Mertz returning is part of that. Is he wants to fix it, unfinished business. So hopefully, all that comes together. I'm glad he's back. I hope there is a next step. We've talked about that next step the last couple of weeks, but I think there is more for Graham Mertz, and I hope there's more for Graham Mertz. And if there is, the Florida offense takes another step. There is, I think we know at the baseline of what we're getting from Graham Mertz, and that can win some ball games for Florida with an improved side of the defense. But we know there's a next step, and hopefully he's on his way and taking that next step. But also, let's hear from him on the freshman phenom so far of what we're hearing, DJ Lagway.
For me, it was when I went into Wisconsin. I was a young guy, highly recruited, all this stuff. And I mean, that can be a lot. So for me, it's seeing a guy that's going through, I wasn't Gatorade National Player of the Year and all this stuff. So it's a different scale. So I can bring things that I went through. And recently when I was learning the offense here and how to teach them, how to grow at like a faster rate. But he's done a great job. Like you said, the no egos thing. I think that's exactly what I would say. He's here to learn. He wants to grow. He's a competitor. I saw him out there today kind of getting into competitor mode, and it fired me up a little bit. So, it's been awesome. It's been, 2 months of it so far, 2.5 months. But yeah, we're rolling.
Can you appreciate the arm talent when you watch it?
Yeah, he's elite. Yeah, 100%.
There we go. And like I said, first couple of practices that the word has been not afraid to launch it is one DJ Lagway. So that's what you want to hear, I think. So don't want to be reckless with it. Freshmen can be. I'm sure there's some emotions that going through there for DJ Lagway taking part in his first practices as a Florida Gator. But obviously, I think all the positive we hear about DJ Lagway can only be helped by somebody like Graham Mertz and giving him learning the ropes there at the quarterback spot. So one more player. I did want to expand a little bit on this offense talk, and let's hear Graham Mertz on his relationship with Chimere Dike, his wide receiver counterpart there at Wisconsin a couple seasons ago, decided to transfer there to Florida. And Graham Mertz, he basically said, look, I didn't want to push him towards Florida. I wanted him to make his own decision. I told him what I thought, but I didn't want to try and make the decision for him. But here's more Mertz on DK.
Full circle moment. You go back and watch that, I think it was like 2021 or 2022, that film, and just go watch all of Wisconsin's third downs that were targeted to him. It was a lot. But we built up that chemistry when he came in there, and then obviously came down here, and you build chemistry with everybody. But Ricky was in that same spot where you get into a third down and your slot receiver is going to go win. And I think that's a thing where we got a lot of guys that can play that slot position for us. But I think Chim's doing a great job of being that veteran guy that's played, that's won one-on-ones versus the best DBs in the country, that has that experience he can rely on. So it's going to be awesome.
What better way when losing Ricky Pearsall, and we've heard Mertz talk about his relationship with Pearsall and how close they got last year. Well, what better situation than losing Pearsall and then bringing in a familiar face? That can go a long way in making up for that. Trey Wilson, I still think, is not the quote-unquote number one, and in some ways he is, but, a lot of people equate number one to a big outside receiver. No, he can be the number one option at receiver, and look, he'll get moved around. He'll be on the outside in the slot, still getting carries as well. But you go look at DK in that year Graham Mertz was talking about in year 2022, Mertz's last year there at Wisconsin, and there's a highlight reel out there on YouTube of DK's use that year, and Graham's right. Third down option catch and run option. Did prove that he could do that in a good bit. And as I've said before, did prove that he can show a lot of similarities in that whatever that Wisconsin offense was a couple of years ago in getting handoffs on in the rounds and getting carries from the receiver spot. I mean, DK proved that he could do that at Wisconsin. So a lot of the things that we've seen Florida receivers do, the things that we've saw Wilson do and Pearsall do the last couple of years, DK has done that at Wisconsin. So I think it's a good match and a good way for bringing another part of experience in for this Florida team who, look, we said, and it's going to factor into it. 32nd on Bill Connolly's ESPN returning production. I think it was 4th in the SEC, if I remember right. So, top after, but it's got to pay off. I mean, this is experience that won 5 games last year and guys from the transfer portal, DK being one of those guys. Lost his job last year. Wisconsin did change, of course, coaching staffs and offense, and not necessarily a fit for that offense with Luke Fickell coming in there from Cincinnati. So transfers to Florida, a familiarity with Graham Mertz, another familiarity that should pay off. Talking about familiarity, there should be a familiarity at the tight end spot for Callaway, of course, as the co-OC and the tight end coach for Graham Mertz, because look, the top 2 options return this year. Arlis Boardingham, Hayden Hansen return. Keon Zipper, even though he didn't play last year, not really the rapport with Graham Mertz as the other 2, but he returns. A lot of experience at the tight end spot with him. Tony Livingston comes in. Gavin Hill transfers from the defensive line over to the offensive side of the ball and is now a tight end. So a little more numbers there in that group, but you do have some proven production somewhat with Arlis Boardingham and Hayden Hansen. So let's hear from Russ Callaway, specifically right here on Hayden Hansen. He gets into a little bit of the tight ends.
Yeah, Hayden has put on, you're right, I tell you what, he started to transform his body, and he has worked his tail off. I tell you what, Hayden is, he started off the year last year, little green, threw him in there. First game, made a couple mistakes, and then just every week he got better and better, him and Arlis, and Tony included. Tony missed some time for some injuries, but Hayden's done a tremendous job working, has transformed his body in a good way. Arlis has done the same thing, and Tony has done the same thing. I think we got a really good group, and excited about all 3 of those guys.
So there we go. A little bit of breakdown with the tight end group. We'll get into more in just a second from Arlis Boardingham, but you're hearing Russ Callaway talk about Hayden Hansen. And just a good tease here, if you're a member of Florida Victorious and you get access to their message board, Gaines Vegas has provided some inside practice notes there from the practices, the last couple of practices, and quote on the tight end position, of the tight ends, Hayden Hansen has looked really strong through the 2 practices. So, of course, it's basically underwear practice right now. But Hayden Hansen is a name that has come up so far through the first 2 practices. So, one more time, Florida Victorious, if you're a member there. If not, of course, join. Help NIL there at Florida. Part of that is you help those players come on podcast. Of course, we got one next week there with Noel Portyagan there from the offensive line. We'll have him on the podcast next week. But of course, you get access to that message board as well. And there's insider practice notes from the first 2 practices of spring ball so far. Gaines Vegas provides those right there on the Florida Victorious message board. So go join there. But some welcome news at the tight end spot there of Hayden Hansen. And of course, really come in last year and help make up for Jonathan Odom, who, couldn't go through last year and had some nice big catches, some nice catch and runs from the tight end spot. So I'm eager to see how he builds on last year as well. But, of course, Arlis Boardingham. And let's get to hear from him about, he goes through the whole tight end room right here, how he wants to get better, and, of course, the ever-important return of Graham Mertz at quarterback.
I think I went into the offseason knowing what my flaws were, seeing how I played throughout the whole season. I was able to go back and watch the film and really attack the areas that I felt like needed a lot of work, which I still am to this day, but I felt like my offseason was real good.
What areas did you think you needed to improve on most specifically?
Most specifically, just making sure I'm an all-around better tight end. Like, I'm known for the pass catching, which is good, but I also want to become a more complete tight end. So working on that run blocking, getting stronger, just lifting more weights, and just making sure I understand the technique behind it.
What was it like working with Russ Callaway, and what do you make of him kind of having some play calling duties this season?
It's great, especially for the tight ends, but off season or right now, and even throughout the whole season, he's done nothing but push the whole room, especially me. He knows he said he's seen what I could do. He knows what I'm capable of, and so he pushes me to be better in every way possible.
How do you and Hayden think you can continue kind of balancing each other out, I
Yeah.
guess, in a sense, given your skill sets?
Right. So me and Hayden like to work on. We're making sure we're perfecting our craft. So I know Hayden knows that he could be a better pass catcher and I could be a better run blocker. So we're kind of working our opposites, but we're making sure we have all of our stuff that we're good at, making sure we're refining it.
Are you and Hayden kind of stepping into a leadership role in the tight ends room?
Yeah,
for the younger
definitely.
guys?
Definitely. I mean, with Keon, when Keon was out, we had to grow up quick. I'll say that. We definitely had to grow up quick. So just going from there in the offseason, coming back, we already know what the offense is about. We know what we're doing on the field. So we're able to kind of just help each other out, even though we all know the plays, or all the tight ends like me and Hayden, we know the plays. Well, we still, we might have some pointers for each other. With Keon coming back, that brings a lot of just competition more in the room, because Keon is a great tight end, one of the strongest in the room, one of the smartest, been here for a minute, one of the most experienced tight ends. So he brings that knowledge and just knowing how the game is played. So I feel like him coming back is going to be great for all the younger tight ends who are younger than him, to be able to teach us what he knows and be able to just compete at a high level.
And then Gavin moving over from defensive line to tight end. He didn't really play tight end much in high school, but
Right.
he did a little bit. How has that transition been from what you've seen?
Yeah, Gavin's transitioning well. I mean, he's going out extra, making sure he learns the plays before practice, after practice, making sure he gets all the stuff right. So he's just taking it one day at a time. But he's definitely getting better, and he's transitioning good.
How much more ahead is the offense right now that you guys now return a starting quarterback in Graham Mertz, which hasn't been the case for the last 4 years?
I feel like it's good. That team chemistry is it's a little difficult when you have to have a quarterback every year. You have to create new chemistry, create new gels coming in. But having Graham come back, we already have that team camaraderie, and so we already have that type of mesh.
So kind of the theme of this episode so far, of course, is just look, even the tight end spot. This is another area where experience should pay off. I mean, both main tight ends from last season return to go along with Keon Zipper for a group that has playing experience. And there's a familiarity with Boardingham, Hansen, and Mertz that should pay off. It's also a big talent upgrade as far as a receiving threat from Amir Jackson that shows up this summer. So, look, this is also Callaway's second season with this group. So the continuity's there. That's a plus too. In the two early practices, Hansen has stood out. Someone that he should progress. He should take advantage of what he learned last year. So as a tandem, I think he and Boardingham bring a really high floor based on last season. And I want to see more as far as the ceiling, because I think it's there. I think there's potential. And I think may need to help out that wide receiver group come along a bit. So plenty of experience should pay off for that group. And look, of course, we go back to a year ago preseason camp. We heard all the whispers about Boardingham and his ability there, and so it took us a little while to get it. But once we got it around mid-season, there was a stretch there where he really, especially that South Carolina game, Florida doesn't win that game without him. So, and then Hansen became more reliable as the season went on as well, and as he grew. And I think it's pretty cool, the realization there for both guys. Boardingham saying, look, I know I got to work on run blocking, and Hansen's got to work on his pass catching ability. So you have these different tight ends, and that's another aspect of this that, look, going back to Russ Callaway and his co-offensive coordinator, look, he's got to learn part of Billy Napier's offense, because his background and the air raid, a two tight end set, and especially the way he's using this offense, not really familiar with that. So, I think you blend the two. Of course, I think when you want to go 4 or 5 wide, two tight ends, maybe Boardingham is one of those receivers. Amir Jackson coming in, maybe one of those receivers there. But that's an aspect that Callaway certainly had to learn about Billy Napier's offense and how to use two tight ends. And he's in that tight end room now. And I thought those guys took a big jump last year. And, of course, Callaway taking over for William Pigler after Billy Napier's first season. We saw some nice things from Keon Zipper with Anthony Richardson in year one, especially that Tennessee game, of course. But last year, you didn't know where the production was going to come from. It really, really had to come about in some ways we weren't sure it was really going to come about. Odom was thought to come in as to be a reliable option at that. He wasn't. Transfers out of the program. There's been a lot of movement at the tight end spot the last couple of years. You had a lot of names and guys who haven't really come about yet. But Boardingham was, didn't know what you were getting out of a West Coast kid coming here. Knew more he'd be more of that receiving threat, and we've seen some nice things. And then Hayden Hanson coming along as well, helping kind of make up for what we saw from Jonathan Odom the previous season. So I like those two coming back. Keon Zipper coming back as a plus. He's been limited so far, not really pushing him into 2 practices so far this spring. So a lot of options, a lot of experienced options there at the tight end group that really should pay dividends for this Gator offense. All right, so let's keep it going and end this episode with Internation. We got to commit. And this one, quite a surprise here. And, a big surprise. 5th commitment for the class of 2025 along the offensive line. Offensive tackle Enoch Wangoy. He's a native of England. So pretty interesting there. Florida going overseas, of course, to get another offensive lineman. So it was really interesting there. Enoch Wangoy. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I'm sure we'll be corrected here. But out of Jacksonville, Zarephath Academy, class of 2025. He announced a commitment late on Saturday evening. Followed an unofficial visit to Florida in a meeting with Coach Billy Napier. So just coming out of nowhere, great measurables, 6'7", 314 pounds. Once again, a native of Great Britain who moved to the United States to play basketball. 2023. Last year was his junior year, marked his first season playing football. So very, very raw prospect here. I'm going to try and pull up some highlights, of course, and just, when these highlights start, he's playing defense. So a little bit of versatility here, and you'll see that versatility. Very quick options here. But before transitioning to American football, Wangoy spent 7 years playing soccer. Also significant experience. He moved to the States to play basketball. So that's why he's in Jacksonville. Played for Manchester Magic and FIBA. Has some experience with rugby as well. After only 1 season of playing football, got several attention of several programs. Florida, of course, also claims offers from Auburn and Syracuse. So Florida staff believes Wangoy has a unique skill set to accompany his impressive frame. And look, on defense right there, you see him chasing down a running back, but really aggressive. That's what you can see here from the highlights, whether it be, no matter what side of the ball, whether it be as an offensive tackle or a defensive player, very, very aggressive in his mindset. So, don't know a whole lot about him. Not going to pretend to know a whole lot about him. Even if he's here in Jacksonville, I never heard the kid until he committed to Florida. But the staff, this is a project. There's no looking past that. It's not an instant step in, very raw player. This is a project, somebody you expect to step in day one and have big contributions at Florida. Rare anyway along the offensive line, but especially right here. But the staff believes in that unique skill set with his frame. There's some belief that he's in the mold of a couple offensive linemen from recent recruiting classes. Lucas Simmons at Florida State, and then last cycle, Favor Edwin from Auburn. He committed to Auburn there. So impressive measurements, as I said. Another one, 86 1/4 inch wingspan, 35-inch arms. So, you see why, at least based on size. It might be somewhat of a reach, of course, here this early in a cycle, in a position group where, Florida, if you want to go by recruiting rankings, it just hasn't been there. So no instant impact here. This is somebody you're going to develop, have to wait a few years to see what you get out of him. Raw, very, very raw prospect. 1 year of playing football so far. So maybe Florida's in front of this. As I said, some other offers out there, Syracuse, Auburn. But, of course, Wangoy, is Florida's second offensive line commit for the 2025 class. Of course, about a month ago, Florida got a commitment from 4-star interior offensive lineman Peyton Joseph. He committed to Florida back in early February out of Warner Robins. And then, of course, you got to go back to last cycle. And the Gators going to Germany and, of course, getting Noel Portenjagen. Gators going international once again to attain an offensive lineman. Noel will be on Gators Breakdown this week, thanks to Florida Victorious. We'll get his, thoughts of, learning the game of football from overseas. But Florida getting another one right here on this class of 2025. But just, it is not trying to spin anything. It's just really surprising that Florida goes this route again for an offensive lineman. Hopefully it pays off down the road. You got one outside at the tackle spot now with Wangoy and then Joseph there on the inside. So something we'll just have to wait and see. I know some people thought originally, well, this is going to be preferred walk-on or whatever. Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like he's going to get that scholarship offer from Florida. And look, Florida may be out in front of this. We'll see camp settings. We'll see other offers. He'll get studied like crazy now, given this commitment. So we'll see where it goes here for Florida. If you want to go and look at recruiting rankings, compare recruiting rankings on this one. So not a whole lot out there about this. So 4.3 GPA. So I said 2-sport athlete. Came over to play basketball, still playing basketball. So very athletic option at the tackle spot. And Florida and this staff kind of known for that, creating or getting offensive tackles in that very athletic mold with some basketball backgrounds. Gets another one right here. So right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.